Okay, so welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Jim McPherson. This is a training session for me. I'm trying to figure out the system so that I can step in when there's a need for that, which will happen again on Friday. So this is my this is my beginning to start it out, and I'll remind everybody to at least at the beginning mute yourself so that when we start you can unmute and ask questions and so forth. Reed is here with me now on the other side of my computer, and he'll help my screw ups if I do that. Uh, I'd like to formally welcome this stranger that no one knows named Ann Lovejoy. No, she's like the heart of this whole organization and just reminded me that she is set up for this entire week as the STTA presenter. Yeah. And so thank you so much, Ann, for stepping in today. Today, her topic is volunteering, and she'll have a lot of really cool ideas for us. And she plans to have stuff available in the chat box for us to actually use links from our current computer, so we don't have to figure it out. But I'm sure she'll make the offer at the end that if people really need her, she'll give them the links later. Before we begin, let's talk about our sponsor. Something to Talk About is sponsored by Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers assisted and independent living, along with a vibrant memory care community located on a tranquil rolling bay campus. It's gorgeous, by the way. It's fabulous. Fieldstone also has a day stay and respite care program, so you can call them at 206-594-1010, or you can email Ashley there, Ashley C at fieldstonecommunities.com. That's all one word. So check out their website at fieldstonecommunities.com, or drop by for a tour. Actually, I'd probably recommend you give them a call and tell them you're showing up. They may actually have tours, but if you want to, it's an incredible facility, so check it out. We'd also like to acknowledge that we meet on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water. The Suquamish have lived on the water of Salish Sea since time immemorial. We honor them and are learning from their stewardship of these lands and waters. So we have some people that have been dropping in. Thanks for showing up. Again, I'll remind later comers that I'm Jim McPherson. Reed is also in a little box there, but he's not going to stay. You're not staying. Are you staying? He may stay. Who knows? But I'm practicing today, so bear with me. And with that, unless there's anything else you think I should do, Reed, I'll just pass it on to Ann. And Ann, tell us what you're going to talk to us about today.
Thanks, Jim. We are talking about a couple things here because it's Earth Day. I wanted to focus a little bit on all the many opportunities of that we have to volunteer in different ways on Earth Day, from being at home and cleaning up your own garden, not too carefully and being extra careful with not to use pesticides and so forth, to showing up at the Earth Expo on Saturday, the 27th at Battle Point, when there's going to be booths from pretty much so many, like 40 or 50 different organizations, service organizations, all of whom are dying to show you the things that you could do for them and for the planet and for the community and the people. So there's a lot of ways to be of service. But I think one of the things to think about is why? Why do we want to volunteer in the first place? And I think that's what I've asked a number of people to join us today who have been volunteering probably decades. I bet we probably have hundreds of hours of, maybe even hundreds of years of volunteering experience right here in this group. And so I'm going to invite different people to kind of share some of their experiences about when and how they started volunteering. Colleen, I would love to tap you because I know you've been like a lifelong volunteer, right?
Yeah, volunteering forever. I I I really get a lot of self-satisfaction from volunteering. It's particularly nice for me to know that I'm doing something for somebody else, but I get the benefit. So that's really that's a strong thing for me, because I typically am somebody that wants to give at some level to people. But I've been thinking about this, why we volunteer and what should we do when we're voluntary. I think it's really important to volunteer to do something that you love. And because if you enjoy doing something, it just makes it so easy to sign up and to do it, whatever it might be, because it benefits you personally. I love to cook, so I can fulfill that desire, that thing that I have, by helping out for events at the senior center. And that makes me feel really good. I don't care. I don't want to hear how people like or don't like my food. It's just a benefit to me. And I'm hoping to other people at the same time. So I know there's a lot of people that have, I think we really benefit from volunteering. And especially as we age, when we don't have jobs to go to or families to raise, you get so much benefit from giving back for however you choose to do it. So that's my deal.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And a lot of people with the need to feed gene, when they find once the family's gone and they don't have a lot of people to feed anymore, they keep making too much food. And there's so many ways you can actually be helpful with that. Like you can every time you cook, put some in the freezer with a label. And then when you have someone who's just had a surgery or somebody who's incapacitated for some reason, you can take them over a bunch of, ready to eat things. And I know all of you remember Bo Last and his wife, Lonnie Kawasaki. Well, Lonnie is carrying on with the tradition that they started decades ago of feeding homeless people in Seattle several Saturdays a month. And she's doing it by herself now. I'm sure she would love to have a hand to take food over to Seattle. And she's got a whole community that helps her over there, which is pretty amazing, right? But there's so many ways we can reach out right in our neighborhood, on our island, across the water, and it's. I just feel like that's something so fruitful. Sheila, you have been a volunteer forever too, right?
Yes. Yes, I have. I was thinking about what was my first volunteer job volunteer that I ever did, and it was Meals on Wheels. Back in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, I think it was, when we were living there. And at that time, my daughter was probably 3 or 4. She's probably in kindergarten, maybe 5 then. She's now 50, whatever. And she and I would go and deliver meals to people. And that was such fun. And if I forgot to take or didn't take her with me, they asked the people that we went with to ask where she was. She remembers that. She remembers that as being quite a wonderful adventure when we were doing that. So, and I love doing that. That was great fun. What else? A lot of my things that I do now has to do with the senior center. Some of my volunteer work with the senior center is telling people about it as much as I possibly can. I was at a do the other day and encountered 2 or 3 people who didn't know much about the senior center, and believe me, they know a lot more about the senior center now. I had such a good time talking. It's such an easy thing to talk about, and for me to volunteer to be on the board and to be involved at the senior center in various places, I'm just so blessed. I think the main thing, as Colleen was saying, it's for me too. It gives me so much. All the way back to the delivery of Meals on Wheels, it was a joyful expression of what I could do, and it particularly great to have my daughter with me. at that time. But yeah, it's a lot of fun too.
You made me remember when my oldest was just a baby, I was volunteering for the Country Doctor Community Clinic on Capitol Hill and doing foot care. Isn't that ironic? For in all the senior housing, and worked with a couple different nurses, and we would go and soak people's feet and do all, trimming and so forth. And it worked great until the baby was able to crawl. And suddenly it did not work well at all. And I had to rethink my volunteer experience because a baby with sharp tools is a really bad mix. But yeah, thinking back to like high school, I got involved with helping out at the East End House in Boston, doing tutoring and thinking, it's really opened my eyes. From Concord, Massachusetts to the East End of Boston was a pretty long way, though it was a 20-minute train ride. And that was sort of the beginning for me of really starting to realize that there are several worlds, and our little bubble may or may not be what other people are experiencing. So it's like the earlier you can start your kids in, I think the better it is.
Well, you know what? You just absolutely cleared in on two things. I was a candy striper when I was in high school. And the only bad thing that happened to me when I was that I got locked in the elevator and it stopped. And I'm terribly claustrophobic, was terribly claustrophobic. And it was just it was a nightmare. But I continued with that work. And the other one was, you mentioned about teaching, and I did a lot of ESL work prior to going into Peace Corps, because that was one of the things they recommend that we get out there and do that. And so I did for a few years. I did ESL work mostly with women who had just come into the country, and it was fascinating. It's just I learned more than they ever learned. I'll tell you, it was
wonderful. And I bet somebody volunteered to get you out of that elevator too, huh?
Oh my God, I'll tell you. I still can remember it, Anne. I can remember it.
God. So Bob, let's hear from you. You've been pretty stalwart, volunteering all kinds of things, super suppers and at the senior center.
So, I helped put on movie night, which is just fun. And when Jim and I pick a movie that everybody likes, it's really satisfying. Senior centers, one of the places I volunteer. I'm also a volunteer with the Citizens Climate Lobby, and I'm going to be tabling at the Earth Day event at Battle Point on Saturday. I also volunteer for the Washington Warm Line, which is an emotional support line that's based in Seattle. And so, we deal with people that are experiencing all ranges of emotion. Some of them are in crisis and they need that immediate support. A lot of people are our age and they're just lonely and they want somebody to talk to. So that's good. Like Sheila, I was also a Peace Corps volunteer in Central America. And that was one of the, that was something that shaped my outlook on the world in a profound way. So, and then I volunteered for the 23rd Legislative District Democrats, but I backed away from that because I got a little too close to seeing how the sausage was made, if you know what I mean.
I'm afraid I do.
Yeah, there you go. Anne gets it. So, and now that I'm older, and also being a widow, just being able to put yourself out there where you're interacting with other people is just so important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big pieces that we know from a whole bunch of studies, that loneliness is a real problem for a lot of seniors, especially after COVID, when so many people were isolated and some people had a hard time getting back into the game, right? And some people
Yeah.
never really managed it in the first place. And it's like volunteering gets us out of ourselves, which is, it's like we bring ourselves to the party, but we also get this perspective that's bigger than our own little wants and needs. And what an amazing thing to be able to share, you know, a lifetime worth of skills and experiences and hopefully some wisdom in there somewhere, that we've, you know, you accumulate all this, and why not pour it all back into the community where it can do some good? To me, that's one of the most satisfying pieces about being a volunteer in any situation,
Mhm.
really. Don't you find that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Although in my case, the wisdom part, I kind of question that. I don't know how much wisdom I bring to the table, but I try and make up for that with enthusiasm.
There you go. Reed, if you have time to say a little, I just want to kind of call out the fact that you, even though you have a full-time job at the senior center, you are like Mr. Volunteer yourself. All the um, vaccination clinics, when you were showing up for all of those, and for so many things, you do the Interfaith Volunteer Council, you sit on a bunch of different committees and things with the city. You know, what motivates you to do all that above and beyond?
I don't know if it's above and beyond. I feel like it's sort of like if it's a reasonable request, I try to participate and try to be useful. One of the challenges, of course, if you get into that loop, is to make sure that you take time for yourself, that you don't overcommit in your volunteering, that you make sure that you have enough energy to keep doing it. So there are a couple of things that I did for many years, like serving on the Interfaith uh, Council, the Bainbridge Island North Kitsap Interfaith Council, that I am now not attending meetings as often because I just don't have the energy, but I am still helping out with keeping their email lists going. So it's something I can do, you know, in the corners of my day and support them. And I also was very active in the super suppers. And while I'm not coordinating all the super suppers right now, I still definitely make a point when I can, as other people on this call do, to help out with feeding folks on the last 7 days of the month when it's my congregation's turn to help.
You know, that's such a, you bring up some really good points, which is that volunteering doesn't have to be every day, all day. It can be as it works for you, and it can be sporadic and still be helpful. And I think there are a number of volunteer organizations on the island and all over Kitsap and all over the world, really, who would just love to have the spare corners of your day to do small things that you're good at and are not too hard for you particularly, but might be challenging for somebody else, or they don't have enough staff or whatever it is. So thinking about those pocket places where you can step up for a little while in small ways is still just as valuable as if, you know, you're really showing up big time. And I think we are, you know, hello, we're seniors, we're getting tired, we're slowing down a little bit. Well, maybe Colleen isn't, but I am. And it's
I
just
am.
that
Do you
you
think that
still feel like the energizer. Go ahead.
one of the organizations that is built around that is Island Volunteer Caregivers?
Right.
IVC Bainbridge is committed to the idea that you volunteer when you can, and then so you can sign up to be, say, a driver for somebody, and then you only have to drive when it's available, when it makes sense for you.
Right.
And what I say to the volunteers here at the senior center is one of the great things about volunteering is you can say, I'm going to be out of town. I'm not available that day. And Sheila, who is helping out almost every time we meet at something to talk about with keeping attendance, just sent me a note saying, I can't be here Wednesday. And that's totally fine.
Though you'll miss a great talk about gardening and Earth Day and all that, but never mind. Uh, I'd like to know about Kimi actually, because Kimi, you are another one of the busiest people I know. You have been on as many as, I want to say, 5 boards at one time. Is that correct? And you're still alive to talk about it. You're muted.
Yeah, you're probably right about that, but not 5 all at once. I'm only on 3 now. So that's,
You slacker.
oh, hi, Rita. I just see you now.
Oh,
So
hi, I just
wanna know, I was a poor kid who was largely growing up unsupervised because my parents were both um, blue collar workers. And when my father was a gardener, my mom did sewing in the sweat factories and did piecework. So, but I had a lot of energy and I was kind of bossy. So I got the neighborhood to do plays that I liked. Like the first one I did was Ferdinand the Bull. And that was very satisfying. But then in high school, I wasn't one of the popular kids, but we had a core bunch of nerdy kids.
Mhm.
And one of the shopkeepers agreed to sponsor us because we wanted to form our own organization. And we raised money largely from making our parents and their friends have their cars washed at our car washes. And then we talked our parents into helping us grill a bunch of teriyaki chicken, and we sold dinner plates. We'd sell out. And then with that money, we took kids from, we were close to Watts. And so we talked to, because we thought we were rich. And then, so we took that money and we each, there were 12 of us girls, and we took 12 kids from one of the community centers there, and they let us take them all day to Disneyland. And yeah, we paid their way and we paid their food and we had fun. And so, and then another time we collected thousands and thousands of books for Vietnam, for the, the soldiers in Vietnam. And we would just write a little note and let them know how much their service was appreciated. I had a brother who served. And then also, oh, we could march. We didn't have cars, but we marched in the neighborhoods and collected the third largest amount of money for muscular dystrophy at the time. And because I was president of our group, I got to go on the radio and talk about that. So I just feel like, being bossy and wanting friends. And then, but on a more serious note, I think it's the one thing in my life that's given me a sense of purpose.
Mhm.
And I'm not a religious person by doctrine, and as a teen, I went to all the churches in our neighborhood, different ones each weekend. I knew I was going to be a Baptist, but anyway, so anyway, I just felt like, when we first came to Bainbridge Island, oh, and I also was a workaholic. The energy part was always a problem. So, and I taught, but again, was half, because half, you can talk to Gary, but I'd say a good fourth of our income went directly into my classroom. And I always had classrooms that had the poor kids and the language learners, and I wanted them. And so I stocked my class with books and hands-on things. But anyway, so it's always been, it's volunteering, but it's very selfish in a way. And I think you all touched on that because it all returns back to you manyfold. And so I like the senior center because it clearly fills a niche for so many people. And when I first got on the board, I started asking, do we have pots of fund so that all of our programs can be zero bar? And so, I think we've reached that, and it's a great organization for that reason alone. And I don't like doing certain things. Like I'm not qualified to do the desk. So I volunteered because Reed said, oh, why don't you do the desk? And I thought, oh, I think he wants me to do the desk. So I did the desk, but I clearly knew this was not for me. And some supervisors in the office would find me alarming. But anyway, so then I thought fundraising. I saw how so many people in the organization worked, and that was an area that could be helpful. So I try to be helpful there. And anyway, it's been, I think once you get the bite of serving, like whether it's the Peace Corps or whether it's, you know how it feels to give. And really it's someone said it, I think it was Edelman, right? Anyway, she said something about, service is a rent you pay for being on the earth. And for me, I feel I've been given so much that it's not a stretch to be giving the small part that I do. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just know, like, whenever I check in with you to say, oh, could you do this or this with me? You're like, well, let me look. I have about a 12-minute window here. And like, you're so packed and you're always busy. And I just am blown away by I can only imagine what you were like in your 30s. That's all I have to say. You're amazing. Karen King, I saw you nod your head a whole bunch of times. I bet you've got something to add to the party here.
Well, I wanted to add to Kimmy that I tried to do the front desk a couple times, and I was like, no way, it did not work. And every time I walk into the office or in there, I like, thank you so much, because I just could not do that job. It stressed me out. But anyhow, gosh, I look at volunteering as just being part of the humanity and a democracy, to be quite honest with you. We all have to put in something to make everything work. I really believe that. I just, you have to add something. So I felt that way even in high school. I was kind of a political activist. I also worked at my parents' business, which was janitorial, and I ended up doing some places, cleaning them myself. And one of them happened to be a rehab care facility. And what I did is that I was paid to clean, but I would run around singing. And some of the folks that were there were to start singing with me. So I brought my guitar in, and just for volunteering, we would do music together. That was probably my very first thing I did as a volunteer. And then I went on to work with a degree in early childhood education. And I took time to not babysit. I guess it's preschool for single mothers. We took their children in. It was through the Santa Clara Health District. And so we took care of children. And that was a volunteer job. So I loved doing that. Again, getting that guitar out and starting singing with the kids. It was just a blast. Did not feel like work at all. But then we went on, got married, had children, and then we were involved in the San Jose Family Shelter. And our children learned to give through, being with families that were unhoused. And so, we would cook and we get together and eat and have a great time together at the San Jose Family Shelter. So that was the next kind of level of doing service. And we moved here and got involved at the high school, started the vocal boosters. The choir was kicked out of the music boosters. So they asked if we could start our own booster club, and we did. Me and a bunch of other moms, we got together and started the booster club for the vocal program. So that was kind of fun. And anyhow, how come I keep coming back to music? Anyhow, but then I started with the marketing committee at the senior center. I love that. And I do love the marketing portion of that. I love talking to people about the senior center. And every week I'm directing somebody to a service or a program or something that's going on at the senior center, just on my own when I'm out in the public, or I see somebody that's in need. Have you tried going to the caregivers, thing, which is, an incredible thing that goes on at the senior center. So, and then this Saturday will be our first farmers market booth to promote our senior center. So I hope you all stop by and say hi. And that'll be between 10 and 2 this Saturday. So it'll be our first one. So
I
Yeah.
think, one of the other things you did was you created the Fob Friday program, which benefits not just the senior center, but it benefits all the local businesses. And one of the big pieces for me about that is that if, we as seniors, there's always a temptation, especially since COVID, to just push the button and order something online. And if we can go past that, we're really serving our community very well by shopping locally. And maybe that's not strictly volunteering, but it's like volunteering to show up in your town. I think that's really important, standing by the people who are maybe struggling a little, not doing as well as they had, and making sure that we really are keeping our whole community as intact as we can and as supported as we can. That's a big piece of it too. And you're definitely really good at that.
Oh, I love it. I to get to know the store owners. I mean, the folks that have these small businesses. We want to keep the character of Bainbridge, you keep the small business going. Great owners, I just encourage everybody to use that program because it's just keeps the flavor of Bainbridge going. And that's important. So yeah, I forgot I did that too.
You've probably forgotten way more than you've talked about.
But again, I just feel like it's just part of being humanity and being, coming together as our collective common purpose. Yeah, that's the way I feel. I love it.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
And Barbara, I would like to talk to you, hear a little from you about one of the things I really admire about the way you volunteer is that you do a lot of research and you will attend, like with zero waste. I know you're always studying and learning more, or climate change. You're going to seminars, you're doing online programs and learning so much so that your information stays current and you share it really generously. How did you get into that?
Well, I don't want to be irresponsible and give old or incorrect information, and things change all the time. And so, and it's just a way to stay engaged and keep the wheels turning for as long as I can. And it's also a really engaging online community who are as passionate and concerned about the planet as I am. So that's just been fun. That hasn't been a hassle because people have a whole lot of questions about what goes where and why and that kind of thing. So I want to be able to provide good answers for them.
Well, Wednesday, one of the things I'm going to talk about for the Earth Day gardening program is that the theme this year for Earth Day International is plastics or the planet. So I hope you'll be able to join us then too, so really talk a little about it. But I do feel like that's another place where we can show up, is like really trying to do plastic inventories in our life and being really aware of the burden and thinking about ways to reduce that as much as possible. Just like, we learn to shop with bags instead of using paper, right? We can learn to do without things we don't need or that actually actively harm the planet. And I think that
Amen. I took a recent class that was a 7-week course called Plastics and Public Health, and that really set my hair on fire. And it feels like the things we worry about, the little plastic doodads and can they be recycled or not, is just like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Our exposure to all the plasticizers and chemicals and all the packaging and all the things that we use is really the huge, huge problem. But anyway, I'm not supposed to preach here. You wanted me to talk about volunteering. So I started after my son was born and volunteered at his school through the years. And I have a really specific memory of volunteering in the library when he was in kindergarten. And it happened to be a rainy day in Northern California. And the kindergartners came into this musty smelling, wonderful library room, singing in the rain. And I just thought, I could not have been better rewarded for my time than that. And then over the years, volunteering at the food service there and seeing the kids like in middle school, and they'd come back over the summer and they would have grown half a foot or their nose grew twice. And, all of those awkward moments really reminded me of my teen years and help me be a little more patient with my son, I think. And then I started volunteering in Northern California with zero waste there. And then when I came up here, I signed up at the Zero Waste Farmers Market booth here, and I've been volunteering since 2014, and I'm on the steering committee. And then I also volunteer. This is not with Zero Waste, but it's with the Green Team at the Rotary auction. And this echoes something that you said, Karen. What I love about the volunteering at the Rotary is everybody there just works their butts off. I mean, those are a dedicated, fierce crew. And it's having a sense of shared purpose for the benefit of the community that's really satisfying to me. And with retirement came the luxury of time to be able to be involved more in the community. So I feel really fortunate to be able to do what I do.
Well, I'm glad you do what you do.
Me too.
Linda, are you with us? Or are you, I don't know if you're.
I am
can
here.
Can you want to talk a little about, I know you're very active too.
Yeah, I try to stay active. You get to where you realize your years do things are fewer, and you realize a little more the importance of giving back than what I did in my earlier years, I think. So I try to do. I think listening to most of you, I was a latecomer sort of when I started volunteering. My kids were in school, and it was sort of a selfish reason. I had one who was a little too social and who'd like to forget homework papers at school, and so I volunteered at his school as a means of keeping my eye on him. Discovered it was pretty rewarding to get out there. Met a lot of cool people. Met someone there who got me involved in volunteering in politics. And that's probably been my longest running volunteer endeavors, 50 something years now. I've been involved, a lot of good times involved in political volunteering, a lot of heartbreak involved in that sort of thing. Times I said, that's it, I'm never doing this again. But I always found myself back in it. And I'm back in it again. So I guess that's that's a good thing. Really, I was inactive for a number of years, except for a few things that opportunities my company offered. So then when I got to the island and got to the center and discovered how many volunteer opportunities there were and such interesting volunteer opportunities, well, it was just like, yay, let's see what I can do here. I'm with the rest of you, or most of the rest of you. That front desk would not be my thing. I'm so glad we have people who are capable to handle that. Because no, that's not my thing.
But one thing that is your thing that I would love is that you and Kimi last year put together made sure that we had a senior center routine to put together for the 4th of July parade, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun. That
And
was
you're
a
doing it
great deal of
again?
fun. I enjoyed that sort of thing.
Right? And you're doing it again with, what's the tune this year? What song are you going to use?
Wagon wheel. That's yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I wanted to know if it was the Sons of the Pioneers or the Bob Dylan one. And
It is actually
Someone else.
yeah,
Darius Rucker,
right?
isn't it?
Oh, Darius. Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
I want
But-
to get you guys some hula hoops so you can turn them into wheels and do some like cool wheel things.
Yeah. There's all kinds of
And there's space for you up at the front to do that.
Yeah, we'll sign you up right now.
Hey, one of my garden volunteers at the library, where we've been volunteering for the Friday Tidy for 27 years, she in her 80s led the parade in Squim doing the hula hoop for 2 miles.
Ah,
And she was 84. Okay. So I'm not saying I'm that girl, but I'm just saying it can be done.
That's one of my talents that left me a number of years ago, the hula hoop.
Yeah, I'm good at it too. Let's
There
have a smack down, Linda.
Can't
We're
wait
gonna
to
have
see
to
what you put
practice.
together.
Oh,
So-
heck, I want to see Linda with the hula hoop.
Yeah, girl. No,
You
you
can
really
decorate
don't.
them like wheels and roll them with a stick. Like, you know, there's lots of things you can do with them besides the actual spinning.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
so
remember when
Rita,
I
oh,
was a
sorry.
kid, we'd put on long skirts and we would actually pin hula hoops under the big skirts. And that was our little costumes. We felt very ladylike with their little skirts,
Oh, like
whipping all
crinoline.
around.
Yeah, very cute.
I'm not doing that at the parade either.
Well, I wanted to talk to Rita. I'll get Rita to talk a little because Rita, in the last year, I had some really major issues at home and I wasn't being able to do a lot of the things I usually do. And Rita totally not just stepped up, but completely left me in the shade. And she has been really single-handedly pretty much keeping the grounds and the gardens at the senior center looking good, among a million other things that she does. But I really want to do a big shout out to you, Rita, because you're so efficient. And I think it's a big joke that I've always called the Friday tidy at the library a tidy when I'm the least tidy person in the planet. But Rita is that tidy person. And when she does something, it gets done and it is done right. Tell us, but what I wanted to hear your thoughts about maybe starting up some hands-on gardening again.
Right. It's been great. I just like to get in there and I'm not much for like a lot of committees because it's just you got too many people and you got a lot of ideas, which is really good. I just want to get in there and get it done. So, you know, when we're doing gardening, Anne's doing her stuff, cutting it up, doing stuff. I'm just right behind her, kind of picking up. So when we're done, we're done. Or I just go in, and it's been great. It's so fun to be out there, and I get to talk to everybody that goes by, wave at all the cars that are going down the street. You know, people are saying, oh, "Thank you so much for keeping it up," and it's one of those things. If there's something that needs to be done and the senior center calls me and says, you know, we need something done with folding letters or whatever it is, if they have a special project, I'm happy to do that. I'm just not a real big committee girl.
But you're the person who cleans the refrigerators in Uni Hall.
Well, I did do that.
Yes, you did. And one of the things we were talking about is we need a sign that says bed and breakfast for birds, bees, and butterflies for our pollination garden out front of the center. So if anyone has chops in that direction, let me know or let Rita know. The other thing is, though, that she's starting to recruit a couple other people, and so have I. And so this Wednesday, we're going to actually have a hands-on tidy up party at the senior center from 10 to 12. And then at 1:30, we'll have we'll do the Zoom conversation, garden conversation. But if anyone has a yen to do that, you're more than welcome. That's another great way we can step up.
Right. So it's been great. And if, you know, if there's anything that somebody's got a particular project for, just let me know. I can help you out.
When my front porch was a disaster, and it had been such a hard year, just things kept coming. We had now all of a sudden a wheelchair and a walker and all this stuff to deal with, and I just couldn't deal with it. And Rita said, I'll help you. And then she comes over and looks at it and goes, you go inside. I'll call you in. And so I went inside and had tea. When I came out, it was all organized. Like, this stuff goes, this stuff here, don't touch this. This is all good. And it was perfect. But it's like, she is a project person. I'm quite serious about that, right? And if you need a friend, boy, there's your girl, right? One thing, yeah, a lot of people have talked a little about kids and wanting to help kids. And I did want to, in the beginning, I kind of talked about this, but my son Andrew is actually in grad school for counseling and coaching, and he has an internship right now at Bainbridge Youth Services. And he just sent me a little link here saying that the Bainbridge Youth Services is really looking to change up their volunteer process, and they're looking for people who can help in a whole lot of different ways. They've got committee positions, not for you, Rita. They've got board positions. They have, they would love to have some assistance with different events and sorting some different of their program needs. And so if anyone's interested, just call Bainbridge Youth Services, or there's a link that's in the chat, but you can also just call them up and say, hey, what are you looking at? What are you thinking about? And I think it's a really great way to connect, um, to get to know kids. And if you have grandkids and they're not close, you can step up and maybe serve the kids right in hand, because they can really use some help. And boy, they have 9 full-time counselors at the Bainbridge Youth Services. I mean, the kids could use some support. And I really love the idea that we can actually make a difference in their lives. Like Karen, showing up and singing, maybe just making lunch for people, Colleen, or just, bringing snacks or showing up with whatever it is they need, being a helping hand. I think there's a lot of opportunities right in our little community to do those things. But before we go, we're kind of closing in here. Jim, you've also have volunteered quite a lot too. I know you're muted right now. Do you want to talk a
Yeah,
little bit about?
I can jump in. Was volunteering with Reed just now. Similar to Bob and Sheila, I was a volunteer as a young person. I was a Vista volunteer attorney. It certainly was a wonderful opportunity to help people. I was on the Big Island of Hawaii, and I had a number of local Native American clients, as well as Filipino and Japanese and others that were marginalized by the system there. And I got to do a lot of assistance to help them with particularly things like food stamps and housing and things like that. So, and then I came to the state of Washington, and I was with Evergreen Legal Services, which is I guess you'd consider it a volunteer situation. As far as through my career, I did volunteer quite a bit in the area that I practice in, which is pretty common. But I do want to say that the fact that most people did that as a way of getting clients or pushing themselves ahead, I did it because I cared about not just my organization, but attorneys in general, because we have such a bad reputation that I go to the Board of Governors meetings. I have for 20 years. In order to try to improve the way people view attorneys. We're not all bad apples. As far as now, and one of the reasons I'm sitting here today is Reed knows that I semi-retired in January and will be eking out of just a handful of final cases that I have. And so, like has been mentioned earlier, it's a way of seeking purpose. And I've, of course, volunteered through my church, doing a number of things there, and I went on some mission trips with the kids. Fabulous times doing that. But now that I'm older and literally live across the street from the senior center, I have, kind of dipped my toe more here. Now, Bob and I, of course, do movies. Past Lives is going to be our movie this Friday, which is a fabulous movie. If people want to come and see it. And that's sort of where I started out helping out here at the senior center. And now I'm, when needed, I could step in since I'm learning the process of hosting these things. I realize that the vast majority of the effort is with Ann and those that sit in the main seat. But the bottom line, and I'll leave it with what I believe it, I'm not sure who said it, but several people did. It's a question of finding purpose in life. And now that I'm not as busy as I have been in the past, you kind of wake up like a Rip Van Winkle and you go, whoa, what I've been doing for the last 46 years as a lawyer, where's my purpose? And it's true that you get your own personal satisfaction from doing that. So I'll just chime in. This is a chorus here. I think pretty much a lot of the people that walk in the door here at the senior center, where I happen to be at the moment, could be volunteers and probably will be volunteers, little bits here and there. All we need is a handful of people, a large group of people doing a small group of things, and I think that's what we're seeking here. So thanks for what you do, Ann.
Oh, thanks, Jim. And I hope people who watch this later, I know you all probably are aware that we may have a dozen people here at the moment, but a lot of times they get viewed later. So it's, your words can carry a message on to other people who might tune in thinking, well, I don't know, volunteering, maybe I'm interested, maybe I'm not. But I think listening to what everybody said today, it's probably creating a different picture for some people, maybe a little more accessible one that, it doesn't have to be full time. It doesn't have to be learning. I also am another person who could not handle the desk. So if that's not your thing, don't worry. There's plenty of other stuff that you can do and be very valuable in doing, right? Reed did post that quote from that Karen mentioned, or no, Kimia. Service is the rent we pay for being. It is the very purpose of life and not something you do in your spare time. Marian Wright Edelman. That was Kimi. Yeah. And I remember that quote. It's been called out a number of times, but I do think that's what it's about. And again, for me, part of it is investing in my community. Giving back is the phrase people always talk about. But I think most of us, if we looked at our lives, would say we've been helped along the way by a lot of different people in big or little kindnesses, big or little assistance, big or little guidance. I felt like I was raised by wolves, but I can think back to a handful of wonderful people who intervened at important times in my life and gave me some gentle guidance and help and helped me figure out better ways to handle things. And that kind of grandparenting is a huge gift to any community. And that's something we can all do, big or little, you know. So thank you very much, everybody. This is a wonderful conversation and hope to see some of you Wednesday and Friday and every day. Take care.
And thank you.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, Anne, and I will, Reed will help me figure out how to make this stop, but the meeting is being recorded. It says up here in the upper left, and there must be a place for me to click on it. Show me here,
There's a
Reed.
place for you.